Okay, I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education. We are reconvening to open session. May we have a roll call?
Superintendent Wells. Superintendent Wells? Is he here? Okay, I'll move on. President Trutain,
Here.
Vice President Duran, I can see you, but I can't hear you. Vice
Here.
President Duran,
Yes.
thank you. Trustee Clark,
Here.
Trustee Doss,
Here.
Trustee Hinckley,
Here.
Student Board Member Weinstein,
Here.
Student Board Member Mala.
Here.
Thank you. And Superintendent Wells, is he here yet? I'll see if I can get him. There he is. Hi, Dr. Wells.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Okay.
Hi,
Okay.
Audrey. I don't feel like I haven't said hello to you in a while.
Hi.
We finished the roll call and now we're at the Pledge of Allegiance. Join in the Pledge of Allegiance if you would care to. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Student board members, could you read the AUSD mission and vision statement and our meeting protocol, meeting norms, please?
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms. Maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. Endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's beliefs in what is best for students. And finally, make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind while others are allowed to express their points of view.
I need to give a report of the action taken in closed session. One second, please. The board considered the claims made by Sven Hamilton, Jasmine Hamilton, and Sven Lotros Jr. The board voted 5-0 to reject all three claims. That was the action taken in closed session. Moving on. Are there any changes needed on the agenda board? If not, I'll entertain a,
President Trutain, yes.
yes, please
For
go
the
ahead.
12-1 construction update item, the person tonight who was going to do that item, Juan, fell very ill. We are hoping the best for him. We don't have all the details, but his company reported that to us earlier today, and so I will find out more of the details later on this evening or first thing in the morning. But that item needs to be pulled. Or I'm requesting that we pull that item.
I'm sorry to hear that. We wish him the best. Okay. Perhaps I will make a motion that we approve the agenda minus the construction item, which is 12-1. May I get a second?
I second that.
All in favor? Okay. One of the changes that we're making tonight is that the California School Boards Association gave a webinar on how best to run public board meetings via video platforms such as Zoom. And they strongly recommended that all votes be taken as roll call votes. So even on a routine matter such as the approval of the agenda, I will now be asking Julie to please give us a roll call vote. I believe that Trustee Clark, well, our student board members should begin the roll call, and then it would move to Trustee Clark.
Okay. Student Board Member Mala,
Aye.
Student Board Member Weinstein,
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
1 second. I think I have it. Vice President Duran,
Yes.
President Trutain,
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley,
Yes.
and Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Thank you.
The agenda passes, and that brings us to our spotlight. Resolution 2019-20-26, Classified Employees Appreciation Week. Okay, Superintendent, can you take over this item?
Yes, President Trutain, Marina Gonzalez is going to pick this item up from here, the resolution.
Thank you. So tonight we get to celebrate our Classified Employees Appreciation Week, which is the week of May 17th through May 23rd. I'd like to read the background and then the resolution. So Classified Employees Appreciation Week is observed annually during the third week in May. The district is bringing this resolution forward to recognize the Albany USD classified employees' dedication in supporting our schools. Albany USD classified staff are passionate and creative in serving students. We want to acknowledge the crucial role they play in helping our schools run. We would like to take this week during Classified Employees Appreciation Week to share our appreciation for these special employees in our lives. So if we can move to the resolution. Albany Unified School District Board of Education, Resolution Number 2019-2026, Classified Employees Appreciation Week. Whereas the governing board of the Albany Unified School District and Superintendent Wells wish to commend and express their appreciation to the custodial and maintenance staff, child nutrition staff, clerical staff, instructional support staff, computer support staff, and all other classified staff who serve the students of the Albany Unified School District. And whereas the governing board and superintendent believe classified school employees deserve rightful recognition and public celebration for the caring deeds and contributions to our students. And whereas the classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, the safety and maintenance of buildings and property, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and direct instruction of students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Albany Unified School District proclaims May 17th through May 23rd, 2020 to be Classified Employees Appreciation Week. Be it therefore resolved that the governing board of the Albany Unified School District encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our classified employees for their dedication and devotion to their work. Passed and adopted by the governing board of the Albany Unified School District on this 12th day of May, 2020. And two things, just like last time, we have a special video to express our appreciation for our classified staff. And I saw that tonight we have our CSEA Union President with us, Renee Howley. And so following our video, I'd like to invite Renee to speak for CSEA.
Classified staff are employees who often work outside of the classroom
and support education for our students by preparing and serving food, keeping our school grounds and buildings safe, and running payroll, processing bills, running aquatic center, developing budgets, and making sure our computers and technology works properly. The work of our classified staff can be invisible to the community, but without the dedication of our support staff, our schools could not function properly. Thank you for giving your best to the district, especially during this time of great stress and uncertainty. It truly takes all employees working together to educate our students. I am very grateful to you.
My name is Marina Gonzalez and I'm the Personnel Coordinator. Tonight we celebrate our classified staff and the contributions they make to our schools. I want to start with a big shout out to our clerical staff. They are often the face of the school sites and they handle all things big and small, from greeting parents to helping students with first aid, and from supporting teachers to supporting district office functions. If you've ever seen them in action, you'd know that they do more than just multitask. In fact, they juggle fires. They're an amazing group and we appreciate them so much. In the HR department, I want to express my gratitude for the work that Simone Robinson and Laura Ronfelt do. These ladies help our district staff from the very beginning in the hiring process to the very end with retirement planning and all things in between, from credentialing, leaves of absence, health enrollments, and so much more. In the HR department, we have a saying, we work until it's done. And time and again, Simone and Laura come through on that promise. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Hi, my name is Maureen Williams and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. As we recognize all of our outstanding classified employees, it's an honor for me to recognize our IT team, Dan, Eric, Ing, and David, a small but mighty team who ensure the smooth operation of our networks, devices, and student data systems. The importance of our IT team has been highlighted in recent weeks as we have transitioned to remote learning. Our tech team configured hundreds of devices to support student learning at home and also respond to numerous requests for tech support from students and staff daily. Technology is an integral part of all of our lives, and our IT team is an invaluable asset to our district. Thank you for all that you do.
Hello, I am Anna Mansker, the Director of Albany Children's Center. The Albany Children's Center classified employees are incredible, and I appreciate them very much. The para-educators, early childhood instructors, lead paras, custodians, cook, and ACC secretary work diligently and passionately to ensure our Department of Early Childhood Education thrives. Their work is critical, and they are valuable members of our team. During this challenging time, ACC classified employees have risen to the challenge and are working alongside their certificated colleagues to provide distance learning opportunities and to maintain quality relationships with families. They are responding to this pandemic with professionalism and integrity. I am thrilled to work with such an incredible team. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Happy Classified Employees Appreciation. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for all of the time, talent, and treasure that our classified folks put in. Thank you to the occupational therapists, the behaviorists, Tara, my secretary, and all of the paras that do so much for our kids. I am truly grateful for you all. I hope you have a great week.
Hi, I'm Sabina Feinberg, Executive Chef for Albany. I want to take this time to express my gratitude for all my food service employees. They work tirelessly throughout the year, not just during this COVID-19 school closure, providing healthy, nutritious food to our students, supporting their learning and their health. They make sure that the food tastes good, looks good, is appealing, appetizing, and I appreciate them so much for all the work that they do. Thank you so much.
I started working at Albany Unified School District on February 1st of this year. Because school was on and there were quite a few construction and other projects going on and that needed immediate attention, I did not get acquainted with my custodial team like I would have liked. Instead, I would constantly be asking questions to the custodial coordinator to help me get a good picture if the custodians worked as a cohesive team, something that's needed to meet the fast-paced challenges of a school year. Again, I was only beginning to come to know my custodial team and how well they work with each other, with district staff.
I think we're having some technical difficulties. Several people say that they're not hearing Director Borrega on the video.
Okay, I'm going to try again. I'm not sure what's going on. Was it just at Ben that you stopped hearing it?
Yes.
Okay, let's try again. Can you
We
hear
heard
that?
the first part of him, but the latter part we couldn't hear. He went out.
Can you hear Sabine? No.
No.
Okay. Sorry, let me check what to do.
President Trutain, since that was the latter part, we do have CSEA president here to say a few words and kind of sum up the that Ben had.
That would be great. I was very much enjoying the video. I think it was marvelous, but I'm happy to move to Ms. Howley for some comments right now while we work out our technical difficulties.
Wasn't expecting this, so I don't have anything prepared. Marina ambushed me a little, I think. Thank you. Thank you for this. I know that the staff works extremely hard. And even now we are all missing the kids so much and wanting to get back. Also wanting to be safe. So thank you very much for this. Do appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the meeting. It's good to have you here. I appreciate you being a part of this. And we are also really looking forward to getting back to seeing the kids because that's normally the best part of the school day, right? Yeah. Julie, do you have any progress on the last part of the spotlight video?
I'm gonna try it again. I'm not really sure why it stopped working because I can hear it and Jeremy can hear it on his end, but I tweaked a couple things, so let's see if you guys can hear it. Hang on. Let's try this again.
For all the work that they do. Thank you so much.
I started working at Albany Unified School District on February 1st of this year because school was on and there were quite a few construction and other projects going on and that needed immediate attention. I did not get acquainted with my custodial team like I would have liked. Instead, I would constantly be asking questions to the custodial coordinator to help me get a good picture of the custodians worked as a cohesive team, something that's needed to meet the fast-paced challenges of a school year. Again, I was only beginning to come to know my custodial team and how well they work with each other, with district staff, with students, and how they could handle a heavy workload. The custodial coordinator would always tell me, they're a good group, they're dedicated. Well, since day one, everything has gone well, especially when considering what transpired towards the latter part of March, causing there to be an unusual amount of excitement in the air. My custodial team has handled everything in an exemplary manner. On top of that, and learning the history of the department, it can be said that filling a custodial position and even trying to maintain a substitute list in a high cost of living such as Albany, it's a huge staffing challenge. The district's custodial team has always stepped up to make sure that those areas are always covered and so that it's had a minimal impact on the learning environment. Yes, the custodial team is a very dedicated group. My maintenance team consists of 2 gentlemen that are always on the go, handling some pretty heavy-duty projects while producing excellent results. Everyone in the district knows them from the project that they're always done right and always done with a smile. The last 2 of my team are the maintenance coordinator and the custodial coordinator. They handle all the small details to make sure that everything is covered and not missed. When you put into perspective the amount of activity in a school district on any given day, any given week, any given month, and especially for the entire school year, it's a huge undertaking and they've done extremely well. With everything said, I can say one thing. I have a great and dedicated team. And for that, I sincerely say thank you to them in appreciation for all that they do.
Well, I am so glad that we got to hear Mr. Borrego's remarks because that was a great video and a wonderful end to the whole video. Board, I want to open it for comments about this resolution for Classified Employees Appreciation Week.
Classified staff is usually called the support staff, but I would say they have turned into very much the essential staff, essential services that we all recognize today in a very special way. So I also wanted to continue so that classified staff don't feel any different than certificated. So en español, nomás quiero decirles que nosotros somos muy agradecidos y muchísimas gracias por todo su trabajo.
Thank you, Vice President Duron. Any other comments?
I'm sure I just want to really quick say a huge thank you to all of, like Clementine said, essential staff, continued hard work. There's so much that wouldn't be possible if they weren't getting up and coming to work every day. as a board, we are thankful, but most importantly, the students that are directly affected by all of your hard work are thankful as well. And I know that they are looking forward to getting back and seeing everybody at school. So thank you for your continued hard work, and I look forward to seeing everybody in person next year.
I'd also like to just thank all of our staff, excuse me, especially I love watching the video because as Clementina says, I think we know what teachers do, but we don't always know what all the classified staff do. So I love that we got to hear all the ways that they're keeping our school running smoothly in a, crazy, crazy time. So I am also eager to see everyone in person or anyone in person. But thanks very much.
Thank you. And with that, I will ask for a motion. Okay. Well, if not, I will certainly make it. I move that we approve Resolution 2019-20-26, Classified Employees Appreciation Week. Can I get a second?
I second that.
Okay. Julie, can you give us a roll call vote, please?
Student Board Member Mala?
Aye.
Student Board Member Weinstein?
Aye.
Vice President Duran?
Yes.
President Trutain?
Aye.
Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. And now we move to our agenda item 8, approval of the consent calendar. Now, before we vote on the consent calendar, there were actually a couple of items that generated some questions for our board members. Specifically, 8-8, the independent contractor agreement with Challenge Day program for Albany High School, and 8-9, the lease agreement between City of Albany and Albany Unified School District. So would any board member like to comment on the Challenge Day contract? Okay, well, I know it's hard to keep on sort of muting and unmuting and all that. I will just present the question to our Director of Student Services. What data or research shows that Challenge Day strengthens emotional safety and social relationships, positive influences, and education in general?
Thank you, President Trutain. The Challenge Day organization itself, if you would like to get some more information directly from the source, does outline a number of studies, research, and evidence to support their particular program, which has been in effect for well over 25 years. So when you take a look at their own data, greater than 80% of the students who participated, for example, do see a strengthening in the school community, see an outpouring of empathy for students within their grade level as well as within their school. And in general, there's been some positive feedback locally as well from Albany High School students, parents, and community members who have participated. Not that we can say that this is a sole factor, but in the 2 years that we have resurrected Challenge Day, Albany High School used to participate in Challenge Day back in the early 2000s, we have resurrected it, and we have asked all of our 10th graders to consider joining us for this optional program at Albany High School. After the Instagram incident in 2017, it was key for us to work on really focusing on community building and social emotional learning. And as we reflected on what worked in the past for Albany High School, we took a chance and we brought Challenge Day back in 2018. We also participated in 2019. What's nice to see is some of the data that could be a connection includes a reduction in suspensions at Albany High School. Over the past 2 years, we have also seen a rise from 2018 to 2019 in our graduation rates. So we do have some national data and we have some local data. We have anecdotes from students. We have a sense of community building from our 11th graders as they transition from 10th grade, reflecting back on their Challenge Day experiences. As you know, Challenge Day incorporates not only students, but staff members, community members as well. So this isn't just an endeavor that focuses on Albany High School students. It really does focus on building community as a small city. They're looking at modifications in terms of what does a social distancing program look like. And we're working very closely to see if we also agree with their outlines for the next school year, which we hope to have in February of 21.
Great, thank you very much, Director Ritchie. Would either of our student board members care to comment on Challenge Day?
Sure, I participated in it my sophomore year, and it was, as Director Ritchie said, an extremely meaningful experience. And I think every single student has had a comment about it. It was all positive. It's not just a phony program. It really is meaningful, and students get a lot from it.
I didn't participate in myself. Definitely wish that I had, but I've heard some really amazing things about it from people in Audrey's grade and also the current sophomores. And particularly, I've heard a lot of really great things from the friends of mine that are younger that are also guys. And I think it was really helpful for a lot of them because oftentimes there aren't many spaces where young men can be emotional. And so I just have heard a lot of really positive things from that end, which I was really happy to hear.
Thank you. Thank you both. Any other comments on the Challenge Day contract? No? Then our consent calendar also contains a lease agreement between City of Albany and Albany Unified School District. And I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the public and everyone who's watching, which is in order for us to temporarily house the Ocean View students at Albany High School, we needed to provide additional classrooms. And the temporary classrooms that were placed, even though they were placed on the concrete byway, which I believe is mostly district property, it was necessary that we consider the adjoining city property also in our applications to the Department of State Architects. So we needed to negotiate an agreement with City of Albany so that all of that land could be considered for our temporary buildings. And City of Albany was incredibly helpful and cooperative. And if you look at the details of this lease agreement, they are giving us this land during our period of temporary housing for $1 a year. So this was a great example of the city and the school board working together to try to serve Albany kids, Albany students, I should say. So I just wanted to bring that up, that I'm so proud that our district and our city can do something that, that's a fairly complicated legal agreement, and that they can make this happen for the benefit of the students. Are there any comments about the lease agreement or any other items on the consent calendar?
I think that's great. I mean, $1 is a great price. So no, I think that's great. And the city, there's so many different examples of when the city, collaborates with the district. I think that the cohesiveness and the collaboration, between the two entities is something that really helps both do really well. I think that that's prevalent all around, especially now you see all the different things kind of coming together, and people are willing to work with one another to make the city thrive. So I appreciate that. Next time around, maybe it'll even be 50 cents. So.
Okay. May I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Brian. May I have a second?
I second.
Julie, can you perform a roll call vote for us, please?
Start with you, President Trutain.
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I skipped the student board members. I'll get around to you. Student board member Mulla.
Yes.
Apologize for that. Student board member Weinstein.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. And Vice President Duran.
Yes.
Okay. Did I get everyone?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
So the consent calendar passes unanimously. We move to item 9, superintendent and board member reports. I hand this over to Superintendent Wells.
Thank you, President Trutain. Tonight, I have a few items I wanted to update the board with. Momentarily, they will be posted for our viewing audience. And they are 5 different items. First, I wanted to pick up where we left off regarding Classified Employee Recognition Week starting next week. As you know, our classified employees are frontline workers. They are essential employees, ranging from our custodian, maintenance, and cafeteria workers. Our custodians and maintenance are sanitizing our schools, getting those schools ready for when we get the green light, when it's safe for our kids to restart school in the fall. And they take their work very seriously with great pride. Our cafeteria workers, making sure our kids are fed every day with a smile and some enthusiasm, and even the relationships they make with kids, making sure no kid go hungry. And for that, I tip my hat to our classified employees. They are really what help to make our school such a joy and a sense of pride. And so thank you for all you do. My next item, number 2, is special education update. As you know, when we rolled out our distance learning and did it under a crisis situation, we didn't really have a plan. No one in the country did. We met and rolled out best we could our distance learning immediately, and the focus was on supporting our teachers to do this. The next phase now is our paraeducators, who have since been reactivated to help join our teachers to provide instruction and additional support on one of or multiple educational platforms. And we're excited about that. We call that the reinforcement. And we're happy to have them starting with us effective immediately. So they're back in action. So we're getting better week by week, far from being perfect, but getting closer every day. Item number 3 is an update on our budget advisory committee. As you may recall, during our last board meeting, we had a wonderful discussion about how best to utilize our BAC moving forward, whereby we can, we as a district and community can benefit. So we had our first meeting, and we realized that we were having wonderful discussion and breakthrough about how best to use our advisory group. And without getting into all the details, we decided to not have a presentation tonight, providing you with a recommendation to approve, but for us to spend more time and have another meeting to address some essential issues. One is clarifying our purpose. So it's crystal clear what the purpose is moving forward. This is going to be a new, revitalized, and reinvigorated BAC that would benefit the district. I went in with an open mind not knowing that the BAC would be something that can really, really benefit the district. And after much discussion, I can see how we can benefit greatly. So I'm excited to work with this group. We're also going to look at clarifying the roles and responsibilities of our members. And then we're going to calendar events, topics, and processes so that we don't engage in a knee-jerk reaction, but a very thoughtful, planned out way of doing business with goals and very specific objectives. And then we're going to make sure we have annual budget overview training from either CSBA, school services, or some other experts, just to loop us in with updates and changes and how, so all the members on the committee would know how school budgets works in California. So we're excited about having something hopefully for our next board meeting as a proposal that the board can really get behind, because we're doing this in a very collaborative spirit. On the committee, we have two board members, Vice President Duran and Trustee Hinckley, along with other members of the BAC. So I'm excited about our next meeting. Right before you is really our agenda of our next meeting. And I'll just say stay tuned on that. Around the country and in California, moving to the next agenda item, many of us are grappling with graduation. A lot of people early on went on and adopted the virtual graduation because it's the safest of all the graduations. We, being very fortunate, talented, and highly skilled at Albany High School, we have the capacity to do our own virtual graduation if that's what we decided to do. We started out looking at a number of scenarios, and now we narrowed it down to 2. I think we were at 7, and now we're down to 2. One will be virtual, and the other would be a more preferred one based on what the parents and students and community came up with, along with the principal. And here tonight, I'd like to turn this item over to our high school principal, Mr. Darren McNally. And Darren would talk about momentarily about the 2 scenarios and when we will announce to the community our graduation. Our graduation is scheduled for June 12th. And when I say our graduation, I'm referring to the only graduation we have in the district, and that's the high school. The other activities, i.e. the middle school, is a promotional exercise, and at the elementary school, that too is a promotional exercise. So we have one graduation, and that's at the high school. And so I'm going to turn this over to Darren McNally.
Great, thank you, Frank. So we're looking at 2 options related to graduation. I know Frank provided some notes. So our default option, of course, is doing some form of virtual graduation. And virtual graduation would involve pre-recording graduation speeches and then editing them together. And then also for students, having students take pictures in their cap and gowns, adding that to the presentation, and then presenting that as a video or streaming the video online. That this is an option that we are exploring. We do want to do, if possible, some form of in-person graduation if we feel that we can do it. We're still deciding between the 2, but we're hoping to decide within the next 7 to 10 days as far as which option. What we're looking at as far as in-person, or what we're calling in-person, I've kind of phrased it as individual mini graduations, where we can still maintain some sort of safe and effective distancing for everyone involved. The best way to do that would be to actually just divide people up by time. So if you watch the standard graduation ceremony at Albany High, you'll notice that actually students, when they walk across the stage, they actually walk across the stage more than 6 feet apart, significantly more than 6 feet apart. And we're able to get them across the stage about once every 3 or 4 seconds, which doesn't actually feel like rushing. If we have them come in maybe 30-second increments, we can get groups across. And the thinking is that we'll have people come, we'll have kind of a staging area where we can maintain distance. When students come, they will only be allowed to bring a small number of family members to keep the number of people small. They'll move across. We will not do things strictly by alphabet, but generally by alphabet when people come. The reason we're not going to do it strictly by alphabet is we don't want to have people wait for some one person who's out of order in the alphabet to come along. We can still do the name reading part, and have a walk across the stage. Students can then move to an area to get photos taken by a professional photographer, and then next move to an area where they can pick up a diploma. And we're able to do all of this with effective social distancing. I mean, I think that we can do this with better distancing than you would see at Target, as far as the process that would be involved. And this would be all one way. You'd come in one way, go out the other way. Crowds would not be allowed to form. I figure we can do this with probably minimal staffing, maybe 5 or 6 people. And more importantly, it would give parents and students that moment of recognition that's so important for graduation. And when I've talked to students and parents, that kind of literal walking of the stage is one of the really key moments for them. And it's something we'd like to preserve if we can. The place where we would do this, there's 3 options I'm kind of looking at right now. The first one would be right in front of the high school, where kind of the stage could be that raised landing right at the front of Albany High School. Another option would be the courtyard space that was newly installed. There is a small stage area there. The advantage to the 2 options at the high school is logistically they're very simple, so we don't require a lot of staffing to be there and do a lot of setup. All the electrical's there, most of the equipment's already there. And then our third option would be the football field. The advantage of the football field being it has the most space. And we can still do the same thing, move people in one area, move them out the other. If we space them out about 30 seconds apart, we can move the entire class of 2020 across in a little over 2 hours. And we wouldn't have more than 5 or 6 students and families worth of people at a time, and that would be if we become backlogged. So I do think it's possible to do this. I think Superintendent Wells and I are going to look through. The Alameda County Office of Education released their guidance about this sort of graduation ceremony, and we are in this plan that I've talked about is in full compliance with their guidelines. So like I said, we plan to make a decision within the next 7 to 10 days and then notify families.
Thank you, Principal McNally, much appreciated. I wanted to be really crystal clear that health and safety and the well-being of our students and families and community is paramount. And so we're going to consider this only if it's safe and that the projectile does not change. Currently, as Mr. McNally just mentioned, we're in line and following the guidelines given to us just recently this week from the County Office of Education and the Health Department on what kind of ceremonies you can and can't have and the guidelines around that. So we would adhere to those guidelines. Are there any questions for Principal McNally at this time before I go into my final item to report tonight? Hello, is my mic on? Can anybody hear me? No comments, meaning there's no question. I'm gonna go over to my next item, and that is the budget update and potential forecast. We've been reading quite a bit about what might happen with our budget as a result of COVID-19. Before I've gone, I want to say thank you, Principal McNally, for that wonderful update. Much appreciated. Thank you. So the budget update and potential forecast, as I mentioned before, we've been kind of glued into the governor's initial, what we call forecast in January. And in May, we have a May revised due to come out tomorrow. Come out actually Thursday the 14th, but got word today that it may slip out tomorrow. But in the interim, we had some work to do in terms of coming up with a number of scenarios that we may be facing and that impact we may have. And so tonight we have with our CBO, Jackie Kim, who will present to you momentarily a number of different scenarios for us to review and then ask questions of clarification. And then we have to wait for what the budget would look like on Thursday. So at this time, I'm turning it over to our CBO, Jackie Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Wares. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Okay. So the COVID-19 pandemic not only changed our learning models, but it has a significant impact on our budgets as well. There is some impact for the current years and significant impact for the next year's budget. You can see, let's see. This is a chart from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities group. And this shows that they're estimating a significant declines exceeding even the Great Recession we had in 2008. So you can see there's more drops than the Great Recession. Okay. And they projected about 18 billion drops in education funding over 2 years. So this is a significant drop for all the school districts in California. So this is the fiscal reality for the district at this time for the current year. The revenue stays about stable from the state because we get the ADA health harness. But expenditures, we have some unplanned and unexpected expenditures. The reserve will be going down because of this pandemic. And I'm gonna talk about reserve a little later in more detail. And cash. Cash is usually direct relationship with the reserve. And even though the state see the school district has a strong cash, but this will decline with the June apportionment deferral. And I will go over this later on. So the problem with the June deferral is that the COVID-19 pandemic shifted the income tax date from April 15th to July 15th. Meaning that the state has only received about 40% of the normal cash revenue due to this filing extension. So that's what it really caused a lot of deferrals and cash flow problems. The next year's budget. So for the next year's, the governor has January proposals, which has about 2.29 COLA. But at this time, we are not certain what the COLA is going to be. And FigMed expected that it might be between -2% and the worst case will be about -10%. And the county currently, they give us a direction that we should also prepare a budget for about 0%. So I'm going to show you the numbers based on the 0% COLA later on the slide. So same thing with expenditures. We are encountering some unanticipated expenditures. For example, we are buying a lot more Chromebooks and we are buying a lot more sanitizer stations, the hand wash stations. So there are some costs that we haven't planned. And the reserve, this will go down rapidly because of the cash flow problems and also because of the COLA adjustment. So at this point, the budget, we don't know because of the state income tax deadlines, as well as the other uncertainties. The governors is also working with the federal as well. So the May revision will not be the final budget for the state and for us. So we are expecting that the governor will revisit the budget sometime in August and September and give us the final number. So then the district can also revise the budget in sometime August or September. That means also we will have our budget after we start our new year. Okay, so it's a little different from the other years. Let's see, so this is where we are in cash flow. I have to say we are one of the district who is lucky at this point because we have 10% reserve at this point. So for example, we have a total monthly expenditures of 4.6 million. And out of that 4.6, about 4 million are payroll related expenditures. PERS, STIRS, payroll taxes, and healthcare, everything related to $4 million. And other operating expenditures are only 13%. So currently we have a 10% reserve, meaning we have about 5 million cash balance. We are able to meet our June payroll without borrowing any money from the county at this time. Because the state is paying us the June apportionment later on, and we don't have the revenues to pay our employees, but we have a 10% reserve that we are able to make it this time. So the state requires 3% reserve, which is about 1.5 million. It really doesn't cover our even month payroll. And the reason I did a lot of research, the reason that state thought this would work for a lot of districts is because the average reserve for the school district at this time shows about 17%. This is quite surprising for us because this is now what we hear and what we see in Bay Area, but the data shows that the average reserve is about 17% as of April 2020. Okay, so here are some scenarios. You can see the first column here is where we were at the second interim, and the scenario 1 is where we are. With the partial tax passing, the raise of 2% and 1.25%, which we will bring it to the board later on this evening, and with the COVID-19, the revenue loss of 740K. So we will be at this time about 9%. And also the AB 1200 will show these numbers. So when you look at the AB 1200, for example, I said we are able to meet our reserve is because we are currently first year, second year, and third year. So we do have a 3% state required reserve at this point. Now moving to scenario 2. So if we still have the same COLA of 2%, which is very unlikely, then we will have to cut about, well, so this is 2 scenarios, 700,000 in next year, 21-22, to meet 3%. But if we can address 300,000 this coming year, which we only have a few months, then we can cut 300,000 in few months, an additional 250,000 in next year. That will also give us 3% reserve, that we are able to have positive status and meet the budget requirement. So this is showing that how it is for delaying our reductions in expenditures, because if we don't address this in this time, 300,000, we will have to come more next year, about 700,000. When we could have 300 plus another 250, which is 550, it will increase to 700,000. Now, this is the scenario 4 and 5. The county recommended us to prepare these scenarios, which is 0% COLA in 2021, another 0% COLA in 21-22. So that means we'll have to address 1.7 million deductions this year, which we only have a few more months to address this. Scenario 5, this is exactly the same scenario for COLA, but what if we delay our cuts with this 0% COLA? That means we will have to cut 2.6 million next year. So there is a difference of about 900,000 for delaying reductions or cuts for the 1 year further. So these numbers are significant. And also when you see the changes in COLA, about 1% COLA for our district is 310,000. Okay, so I know I just earlier mentioned about negative COLA, maybe like 2%, negative 2%. That means another 620,000 that we are not getting for this current year, I mean 2021. Okay, so our next step. May 19th, we have a budget May revise workshop, but the governor scheduled to it will scheduled to be announced on May 14th, which is this Thursday. And May 26th, we'll have another budget update with the May revised information at the board meeting. And June 22nd, this is a public hearing and budget adoption for 2021. In August and September, we expect to have another budget revision from the governor, and district will also have the budget revision based on his final budget. Any questions? I mean, Dr. Wells, if, let's see.
Superintendent, Board President Trutain, if you wanted to have the board take some questions now, I'm open to that before I conclude my report.
Yes, I think that would be fine if we have a few questions on this update.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Go ahead, Board Member Doss.
I just was wondering, it doesn't sound like there's a, and I might be hearing it wrong, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of support from the state level as far as kind of getting a handle on all of this. Am I not reading that correct? Like not understanding that correctly, or it just seems like there's not a lot of help to try and figure out everything. Like we're still spending money to support students and get the students what they need, but it doesn't sound like that support is coming from them.
Right. We received about 60,000 for state, but you're right, it doesn't really cover much for our needs at this time. And I believe state is also working with the federal to see if they can have their way of getting more money or any ways for them to fund our schools. But they are still working on it. That's why I don't think we will have budget in May, like good budgets in June.
Okay, so they're extending deadlines and things like that to help with this, or?
It's not final. I think we will learn more this Thursday.
Okay.
Board Member Hinckley, I think I heard you.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, clarifications on slide 6. So one is a process question where you said in scenario 4, we'd have to cut $1.7 million in reductions for the upcoming year. Process-wise, haven't we already missed deadlines we would need to have met in order to cut at that scale?
CBO, Kim, can I respond to that question? Let me have that one.
Sure.
Trustee Hinckley, the new potential COLA trigger certain laws that would extend and give us new dates for when we can make reductions in staff. I think you referred to that more specifically, certificated staff, whereby before we had March 15th and June 30th for probationary folks. But with this new COLA, the law would allow the deadline to be extended to August 15th to make necessary reductions if we have to in this potential emergency situation.
Okay, thanks. And then I might have answered this myself just looking at it, but maybe when you give us the update next week, particularly if the state budget is worse, is there a point at which we run into a potential cash flow problem next fiscal year if the cut is actually at 0% or somewhere in the range of what the state proposed last week? That would be helpful to know sort of whether there's going to be some flexibility in the reserves that we have to be able to demonstrate if we simply can't manage the scale of reductions that we'd have to make even to meet our cash flow needs. So
the short answer to that, Trustee Hinckley, is that we will be scrambling to put out a Friday update to our board regarding the real scenario, because by then we would have, the guessing would be over and the facts would be in or scheduled to be in. And then we have a clear picture of what we have to do or not do. And then whether or not we would have to call an emergency meeting or wait till our next meeting to look at very specific scenarios to keep us afloat. And so I really appreciate the question, because those are things we are playing with and have been for the last couple of weeks. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, CBO Kim. And I want to hand it back to Superintendent Wells if you want to conclude your update.
Thank you, President Trutain. If there are no further questions before CBO Kim, that concludes my superintendent report. And thank you for bearing with us because it was typically lengthier than previous reports. So thank you for the time.
It was lengthier, but I think it's really important for us to use these updates as an opportunity to get the latest news out to our community. So I very much appreciate you guys scrambling to get that together so that we could have a very informative update, both on our special ed paraprofessionals getting back to work, the budget advisory committee information that you sent, everybody's interested in the graduation. And of course, we need to know this financial news. It's a quickly changing situation. I'll go ahead and give my update, which will be brief, and we'll move to the trustees updates. I just wanted to bring the community's attention to this postcard that they might have gotten in the mail. This is from Berkeley Public Health, University of California, and UCSF. They are conducting a large study where they're asking for our community's participation. Every household should have gotten this in the mail. They would like to give a virus test to one member of every household, not only in the city of Albany, but basically from Oakland all the way to Hercules. It's a very large study, and I encourage everyone to participate. I think that this knowledge that they will gain from this study about where the virus is could be very helpful to the school district and help us in our planning to the road to reopening schools. So I just encourage you to look for that. If you didn't get the postcard or you can't find it, you can also go to this URL, which is covid19survey.berkeley.edu, and find out more information there. That concludes my update. Vice President Duran?
I wanted to see if I could just my time, the 1-2 minutes that I have, and ask the question of the superintendent if he could just talk very briefly about potential promotion activities that would be happening in AMS and at the elementary, because I know parents really would like some information, however sketchy it is at this moment, but just a little something.
Thank you, Trustee Duran. At the middle school, they have committed to a virtual graduation and have communicating and will be communicating again, I believe this Friday, an update on how that would look, what folks need to do, the start time, the end time, but they're going with a virtual graduation and more details to come out this week. That's the middle school. The elementary schools have committed to an abbreviated virtual graduation. All that information should be announced next week. And so it will be virtual, with the exception of one school that had a hiccup and they were going to do something different, but it was contrary to the guidelines. So they had to go back to the drawing board and look at the other virtual options. And that will be coming out next week as well. So next week we will have more clarity with all of our school promotional activities And by the end of this week, you should hear something about an update on AMS. But they have committed to go virtual in the spirit of safety, and they decided that about 2.5 weeks ago.
Thank you, Superintendent Wells and Vice President Durant. I move to Trustee Clark for his update.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things I'd like to talk about. The first one is on May 5th, the school board had a special workshop titled Effective Governance Practices with an Equity Lens. And we talked about some of the historical inequities in public education. We also talked about looking at some of our policies and crafting a resolution with the focus on equity. I believe the meeting was a very important first step, and the board will have a couple more workshops about this important issue. And the second thing I'd like to report out is there will be a city council meeting on May 18th, and they will be having a discussion about ranked choice voting at large. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the school board had made 2 resolutions in the past in support of ranked choice voting. Some community members of a group called Voter Choice Albany, which I'm a member of, collected over 600 signatures in a 1-month period before they had to stop because of the shelter-in-place order. They had 3 months to collect 1,200 signatures, and 7 out of 10 people asked to sign the petition did. So I'm asking people to please participate in the city council meeting on May 18th about this important issue to strengthen democracy in Albany. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Clark. Moving at Trustee Doss, your update.
Just really quick, I've been going to the high school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and picking up and delivering food. And I just wanted to give another shout out to all the employees there at the high school working, providing meals for the students in the district. Every time I go in there, everybody's like really friendly and in good spirits, and the food's amazing, and the preparation is wonderful. Safety protocols are in place, so everybody is safe and this social, the 6 feet apart, everything like that. And just, it's tough times, and it's not the best, to have to like leave and go do, but I think that it's a welcoming experience for parents to come in and get what they need. So I just wanted to take some time to say thank you again to everybody there. And Sabina's doing a wonderful job there.
Thank you. Yeah. Trustee Hinckley?
I don't have a report. I'll let my questions and nervousness about the budget stand in for my report for the week.
Yeah. All right, then that moves us to our student board member reports.
Yeah, so we don't have much of a report tonight since not many activities have been happening, but high school students have started their AP testing this week or yesterday, and that moves into next week. So instead of 2.5-hour tests, it's moved to 45-minute free response exams. So teachers and students have both been working towards navigating the remote platform of that.
Student board members, is there any news on our new student board member for next year?
Yes, also we had a meeting last Wednesday, a panel of 5 people with our new format that we voted on in February. We selected a new student board member for next year as Michaela is graduating. So that will be Leo Corzo Clark. And we're all very excited to introduce him to the board.
I'm gonna also add that he has come to some board meetings so far, and so some of you guys might already know him. But he was the student representative on the what was it? The PTSA, Audrey?
He was on the LCAP.
The LCAP committee. So yeah, he was a student representative on the LCAP committee.
Well, Michaela, you're a hard act to follow, and I wish him the best. I know that the board will do all that we can to onboard him. And thank you for staying with us, Audrey, for your senior year. Okay, I believe that
Can
brings.
I actually make one report thing? This
Sure, go
reminds
ahead.
me is one thing I've been thinking about is that we would have had a really nice send off for Michaela at the end of, I mean, not just her graduation, but her departure from the board. So I'd like to plant the seed that we've still got to figure out how to do that, because we're really gonna miss you, and especially knowing that we can't say goodbye in person is rough. So
Trustee Hinckley, I'm going to give up the secret. We already have a plan underway. So we have thought about that, but thank you. She has been, for my first year superintendent, a wonderful joy and a revitalized spirit to myself as a superintendent, and I'm sure to each one of you board members.
You guys are so sweet. Oh my goodness. What board do you walk up to and then they tell you all these compliments? This is awesome. Thank you guys. That means a lot to me. And I actually, on the note of onboarding Leo, I'm joining with a bunch of other student school board representatives. Audrey's a part of this as well. And we're creating a student school board representative organization, kind of similar to the CSBA, but for students. And so hopefully, right now I'm working on a training program, developing some curriculum for students, and hopefully that's something that can be used to onboard Leo, or if you guys have other board members from other districts whose students could get involved. I think it'll really benefit a lot of students who are on their school boards. So I'm excited, to see what happens. Obviously, it's going to be sad to leave, but I'm also looking forward to seeing how I can kind of put my experience into this curriculum and this program, and maybe train other student school board representatives in the future. So thank you guys. It means a lot to me.
Thank you, Michaela.
You'll be old enough to just be a board member, so you can just come back as a.
Also true.
Yeah, I know. I'll be on the East Coast next year, so I won't. But yes, I will. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe after school, after college. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Our agenda item number 11, to address the board on matters not on the agenda. We have received a fair bit of public comment on this agenda. There is one public comment for matters not on the agenda, and I will give that now. The other comments come later in the evening. I'm having a bit of problem with, we're getting some very long comments, and we do need to limit these just in the interest of being able to get our work done. And so I am going to read fast and do my best to get as much of this as I can into the public record. I will say to our commenters that their emails will appear in their entirety in the minutes of this meeting. So this is our comment on matters not on the agenda, and I will read for 3 minutes. Okay. Oops. Sorry, I'm trying to get my timer started. Dear Superintendent Wells and the Albany Unified School District Board of Directors, on April 28th, the Albany Unified School District passed Resolution 2019-20-24 in support of the California Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Draft Meeting. The resolution directly subverts the process mandated by the California State Department of Education. I urge the Albany Unified School Board to revisit, modify, or rescind Resolution 2019-20-24. Over the past few years, Albany High School has experienced multiple bias incidents, including racist graffiti and students sharing insensitive and racially charged posts on social media. Education is crucial in building a climate of tolerance and inclusivity in our school community, and while I fully support the goals of AB 2016, it was premature for the Albany School Board to pass this resolution, as the final draft will not go to the State Board of Education for adoption until March 2021. Albany Unified School District Resolution 2019-20-24 affirms support of the current draft, ignoring feedback from educators, elected officials, and from community members. The State Board of Education has said that the current draft falls short and needs to be substantially redesigned. The current draft was also rejected by Governor Newsom, characterizing it as deeply offensive in so many ways. The draft, as written, received over 19,000 critical comments, with only 365 comments submitted in support. The California Department of Education is still in the process of gathering input from experts, educators, and others. The Armenian Assembly of America, Armenian National Committee of American Western Region, American Hellenic Council, American Jewish Community, Hindu American Foundation, Assyrian American Association of Southern California, Korean American Coalition, and the Korean American organization Faith and Community Empowerment issued this joint statement on the draft. California high school students deserve an opportunity to learn the role of ethnicity, race, and religion in the life of all its citizens, including those previously ignored. But the proposed ethnic studies model curriculum in its current form does not come close to achieving this admirable goal. The draft lacks cultural competency, does not reflect California's diverse population, and advances a political agenda that should not be taught as unchallenged truth in our state's public schools. We urge the California Department of Education to completely redraft the curriculum, which is replete with mischaracterizations and omissions of major California ethno-religious groups. The groups highlighted in the current draft should be recognized, but not at the expense of everyone else. That is about 3 minutes worth, and I got maybe 2/3 of the way through the email. I'll remind the board that this is matters not on the agenda, and so the board cannot discuss or comment on this public comment.
Can we though ask staff for some Can we ask staff for follow-up? I thought that was one of our options.
Yes. Yes, that we can do. You know,
can we have, I'd like just staff to clarify what it was we voted for. I was told before the meeting that the curriculum was not prepared and that we were voting simply to endorse the idea of the development of the curriculum. So if we could get clarification of that.
Yes, I think we can do that. We can refer to staff and we can bring this item back for clarification at a later date.
Yeah, I have a question, Kim.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, if the rest of the board agrees, I was hoping that you could just finish reading it if you were already 2/3 done.
Oh, can we get maybe some thumbs up or thumbs down? Let me see. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
I will continue. You see. Noted educators and politicians had this to say about the draft curriculum. California State Treasurer Fiona Ma. The draft ESMC is deeply problematic. It is more important than ever that we provide our students with accurate information and avoid curriculum that will marginalize or promote discrimination. The California State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, Jews are being attacked at this time in synagogues. Acts of hate are happening against the Jewish people. They must be included. Governor Gavin Newsom, we are united in our resolve to make sure the advisory committee draft is only that, a draft, that will be substantially amended. And let me also apologize on behalf of the state for the anxiety that this produced. It was offensive in so many ways, particularly to the Jewish community. I ask that the Albany Unified School District respect the concerns of over 19,000 Californians who voiced objections to the draft curriculum, and to honor the process mandated by the State Board of Education and revisit, modify, or rescind Resolution 2019-20-24. Thank you, Faith Meltzer. There we go. So we can certainly refer this to staff and we can bring this back for discussion on a future agenda. Okay. And that brings us to our agenda item 12, our staff reports. When we approved the agenda, we had tabled 12-1, our construction update. That brings us to 12-2, enrollment update. Superintendent Wells?
Yes, President Trutain. Tonight we have an enrollment update, and the enrollment update would weigh heavily on what the board wanted about a year ago in terms of being able to recruit students to participate in our programs here in Albany. And we have started about 2.5 months ago an aggressive campaign to do that. Since then, we have our former high school principal who's joined us as a director. And within her purview, she has the responsibility of enrollment and the Enrollment Center, along with a ton of other things. And so tonight, I'm pleased to reintroduce you as a director tonight, our very own Alexia Ritchie.
Thank you, Superintendent Wells. Thank you, board members and the Albany community who are joining us tonight. The purpose of this item is to share some enrollment data, some information from not only this year, but some possible projections for next year. So in the 2 weeks that I've been in this position, what I've learned for sure is that enrollment is always fluid, but enrollment and the average daily attendance are certainly critical factors in building the school district's budget. And appropriate staffing is also contingent upon accurate accounting of student numbers. So by examining our current enrollment, historical enrollment trends, and projections for the upcoming year, Albany Unified School District is able to allocate funding and staffing in a fiscally responsible manner. So for that, I'd like to offer some information that we've been able to gather for you today. Julie, could you start my presentation, please? Thank you.
Sorry. Not that one. Just one moment, sorry.
Sure thing.
Okay. Can y'all see it? Can you see it?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry. There we go. Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Again, I'm Alexia Ritchie, your brand new Director of Student Services. Next slide, please. I'd like to start with some overview and some big picture numbers when it comes to what the goals have been and what they continue to be for student enrollment. So let's start by defining the goal enrollment by each grade level. In the elementary schools, we would like to maintain historical class size averages. Our goals for TK, transitional kindergarten and kindergarten, are 22 in a classroom. Again, these are goals. From 1st through 3rd, our goal is 25 students. 4th and 5th, 28 students. An interesting phenomena that we discovered this year, we actually have 44 Albany first graders returning after being out of the district for kindergarten. So we're delighted to have them back in. Our goal for Albany Middle School is 295 students per cohort. Remember, Albany Middle School has 3 different cohorts, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So our goal is 295 per grade or per cohort. And at Albany High School, we have a goal of 315 per cohort or per grade. Our interdistrict transfers and our enrollment always focus on the entry points. Each level of the school or the school history of a student has an entry point. So you'll notice that we focus on accepting transfers and enrollees in TK and K, that's transitional kindergarten and kindergarten, 6th grade because they're entering middle school, and 9th grade because they're entering high school. Next slide, please. There was a request to take a look at the enrollment trends from 2014 to 2021. So taking a look at this chart, you'll see that we've been able to track some of the true enrollment numbers as well as some of the trends that we're projecting through 2021. If you take a look at our current school year, for example, in 2019-2020, we projected, and Julie, you might, this might be a good time to make a larger copy of this, but in 2019 and 2020, we anticipated having about 3,575 students. We currently do have about 3,585 students, a bit above that projection, but this was very accurate in determining what kind of staffing we could anticipate for this year. Looking forward, you can see that that trend does go down, but our goal is to not only maintain stability, but to increase that number for 2021. Next slide, please. So that was contingent on a number of things. The biggest one were the interdistrict transfer efforts. I would like to congratulate and thank our Assistant Superintendent, Marie Williams, for her outstanding work in terms of getting the word out there in our recruitment efforts. It really has paid off. We appreciate that. There's been much more aggressive outreach and really consistent follow-up with the applicants. We've advertised in neighboring newspapers. We continue to do so. There is prominent information on the Albany Unified School District's website, in addition to an ease in gathering information for students and for families who are just interested in applying for our district. We did targeted outreach to the current Albany Children's Center preschool families, again, encouraging them to not only enroll for our TK or kindergarten programs, but to also consider an interdistrict transfer. I mentioned the Albany Unified School District's website. We have added resources and our specific process improvements. Even with our shelter-in-place restrictions, we've been able to process and communicate with the neighboring districts and be able to get those students and families who are interested in transferring over in a timely manner. We really appreciate the work of our brand new Student Services Coordinator, Valerie Walker, in our enrollment office. We do have plans finalizing right now to reopen that enrollment office on Solano Avenue by late May or early June to better serve our community. Again, our enrollment office on Solano Avenue continues to accept mail. We continue to accept emails. If anybody has questions, please reach out and we'll get back to you promptly. Next slide, please. Taking a look at what we do have, and let's focus on interdistrict transfers for next year. As of today, we do have 69 newly approved transfers, ranging from TK, again, transitional kindergarten, where we have 30 new students approved, through kindergarten, just 1 student approved, first grade, 1. In second grade, we've been able to approve 5 new students, third grade has 2, fourth grade has 3, fifth grade has 1. Sixth grade was one of our target areas. We were able to recruit and approve 7 brand new students. You can see the other numbers. And again, one of our target grades was 9th grade. And I'm happy to report we've been able to approve 12 new 9th graders to Albany High School. That number of pending is actually up. As of today, we have 11 pending students. We're working diligently with our neighboring districts to see if we can wrap up those approvals. But that number 5, again, has increased to 11 pending transfers as of today. We have a wonderful interest form. In that interest form, we have 58 family members who are interested in getting some more information. Again, that number is up a little bit from the 55. All 58 have been contacted, and we continue to be in communication with them to see if there's anything we can do to help out with next steps. There was a question in terms of what districts of residence most of our transfers are coming from. Greater than 90% of our transfers are coming from the West Contra Costa Unified School District, followed by John Swett, and then Berkeley Unified School District. And next slide, please. Some of our next steps. We do continue to process all interdistrict permit applications, and we do reach out to families who complete that interest form. This can be my email, a phone call, or any other form of communication that is relevant. including a text message. We're firming up current enrollment at each grade, and we are creating a waiting list for interdistrict transfer applicants where applicable. We certainly do not want to over-enroll. We would like to make sure that everyone who applies does have a place, including Albany residents. We are considering a waiting list for some of those grade levels. Our goal is to have our pre-enrolled TK and kindergarten, along with 6th grade and 9th grade classes, full and enrolled by June 1st of 2020. Currently, we do encourage families who are enrolling in kindergarten to do so as soon as possible. We're starting to look at school placements over the next month, and an accurate count of how many kindergarten students we're going to be having next year would be very helpful. And again, I'm very excited to reopen what I feel is the face of Albany School District at this time, our Enrollment Center on Solano Avenue. We do hope that with the current shelter in place, the procedures that we put in place at that Enrollment Center will keep everybody safe, including our staff and the community who need to have more of an interface to complete some of the enrollment documents. That would conclude my information for tonight, and I'll open it up for questions or comments.
I have a question that I also realize may be too early to answer, but do you have a sense of how our general enrollment is going, and what's the sort of net addition of students that we can expect if you refer back to where we thought we'd be for 2020, 21? How do you think or guess we're going to end up in comparison to that?
Thank you, Board Member Hinckley. You know, our best case scenario is we break even, but our goal is to increase our enrollment. Right now, our projections are to not only break even, but again, our concerted efforts are going to be paying off if we can increase the projections that you saw in a couple of slides ago. I'll give you one example. Right now, we have about 160 kindergarten families that are signed up. Last year at this time, we had about 162. We do know that kindergarten enrollees increase over the summer. So from a year ago, when there was only 162 kindergartners reported, we actually ended up right now with 234 active kindergartners. So that's quite a jump from May to the beginning of the school year. So we anticipate those numbers to be similar in kindergarten, and that's why we are encouraging those kindergarten families to reach out as soon as possible so we can get an accurate count of that one particular grade. All the other grades are within the ballpark, but again, we're going to be continuing our recruitment efforts so that we can increase some of those numbers, especially at the entry points.
I had a quick question. Have you been running into any roadblocks as far as contacting other districts in order to complete transfer requests?
We did up until about a week ago. The bigger one was Berkeley Unified, which were very strict in terms of which office personnel I think they were letting back in to process those requests. West Contra Costa, as you saw, which gives us greater than 90% of our transfers, they did open up and they were extremely efficient once they did. In fact, we were able to process numerous transfers from West Contra Costa just within the last week. But Berkeley Unified has been the slowest one to open. We appreciate all the efforts though they've made.
Mine is more a comment, which simply is that when I saw the fact that over 90% of the students were coming from West Contra Costa school district, I recall that our school board president had read aloud a letter that she had, or her own personal comments about the status of West Contra Costa school district and their financial issues. And this was in February, I believe, at the end of February. And I had to reflect on it because it made me realize that however ungently, I will say this. We are taking students from a school district who are hurting, from a school district that's hurting financially originally, long time ago, and that now we're going to be causing them a little bit more grief by taking a large number, some of their students. And I just wanted to put that within that context, that ultimately parents always have the right to make decisions about where their students go to school, but just that there are unintended consequences when we need to make certain decisions. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that if they weren't already.
Thank you, Vice President Duran, for that comment.
I had another question, actually. The 44 students that are returning for first grade are interdistrict transfers, or are they residents that went to a different school and then are applying for?
As I believe it, and I'll certainly ask Assistant Superintendent Williams to confirm this, we believe that they are intra-district, meaning Albany Unified School District families returning after being away from kindergarten.
That's correct.
It's possible that some of those are new arrivals in Albany that might have moved in during the previous months. Is that possible?
That would be against our patterns over the years. This was very different based on the patterns we studied. And so we just know that they went somewhere else. It looks like while living here, and went somewhere else doing kindergarten years and came back during the first grade. And we anticipate there might be several more coming back between now and July.
That's a very high number. Yeah. So it looks like people voted with their feet, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's kind of, I mean, it's directly related to a decision that we made previously. And then parents made the decision to send their kids to places that offered a longer kindergarten program, but they really loved Albany. And so they made that tough decision, and now they're coming back to finish out their schooling. It seems like that's what happened, but I just was asking for clarification because on the paperwork it said intra-district, so I just wanted to get clarification on where those students were coming from. It sounds like we have already made plans and made space for them, so class sizes won't be negatively affected. So
correct. It might just affect the number of first graders that we can now accept on interdistrict transfers.
Director Ritchie, I have one question about the enrollment goal for interdistrict transfers. The board has heard a lot about how last year we were down 96 students, I believe, from what we'd expected. And this effort was put in place so that we could regain that 100 students. And now it sounds like maybe we're looking for a few more. Does the district have a goal in mind, 110, 120, for when you'll feel like our cohorts are filled but not overfilled?
I think in my limited experience, I'd have to take a step back and say that at some point we're looking at the bottom line in terms of overall enrollment versus how many interdistrict transfers we get. We could always get 150 interdistrict transfers, but if we lose 151 students for various reasons, we obviously have a net loss. And so we're certainly looking at what we can do to stabilize the enrollment numbers. Again, that's best case scenario. And what our goal is, again, is to meet some of those cohort numbers, which if we can meet those cohort numbers, we would see an increase in enrollment for next year.
Thank you. Okay. So board, we've received this report. If there's no further questions, we can move on to our item 12-3. Just want to make sure there's no further questions for Director Ritchie. Okay, and there were no comments from the public on this item. So we will move to agenda item 12-3, Road to Reopening Schools. There were a number of public comments that I will read after our presentation and after any board questions. Superintendent Wells.
Thank you, President
take this up.
Trutain. This Road to Reopening Schools is really a framework, not a plan yet. It's the what, and we're going to grapple with the how, making sure we're inclusive, collaborative, and transparent. And I think anytime we look at a road to reopening schools under this pandemic, what's paramount to us is that it must be safe to do so, because we take the safety of our students, our staff, and our community as a priority. And so we will not be reopening schools unless it's safe and in accordance with the state and county health guidelines. And so what you should have before you quickly is an outline that basically covers a road to reopening schools. And I think before we get into reopening schools, it's good to take a walk down memory lane and look at how we got here, how we closed schools. It was approximately 2 months ago from today, March 13th, when we closed schools. And we sent out notification of closure. On that same day, the superintendent provided instruction and direction to principals, also reached out to ATA and huddled with teachers and staff, including classified employees and administrators, on how best to respond to school closure and start distance learning immediately. At the time, we didn't realize how significant that was until later, when we found out neighboring districts and districts throughout California were starting to open schools 3 to 7 weeks later. And we were able to do it through a collaborative effort immediately. Distance learning planning and implementation started to fall on a week, and by Wednesday, we were up and running, implementing distance learning. On March 16th, that Monday, immediately food service went into action. And our chief chef, Sabina, was a one-person show, and we were not prepared to open because many of our staff members who were 65 and over, identified as that group that was most at risk, were not prepared to come to work, and we didn't have the equipment and everything for them that they needed. But staff stepped up in terms of, and community people in terms of volunteering. We had our board members there. I saw President Trutain, Trustee Hinckley, and I heard and Trustee Clark, and I heard of others. The teacher leadership was there every day to make sure our kids had food to eat, both breakfast and lunch. And we started off serving somewhere between 25 and 30 kids. Today, we have gone up to almost serving 300 kids a day. The need is there, and we have our cafeteria staff back in the necessary equipment, mask and glove, prepared to serve our kids every day with a smile, because there's a need, it occurred. We started to meet weekly with a number of folks in the organization, including ATA, and getting input of what's working well, what are some challenges, and coming up collectively with resolution. One of the resolutions is that ATA and others have identified many of our staff members could benefit from how professional development on how to do distance learning. So we devoted, starting April 20th, Monday mornings as an opportunity to engage in professional development of how to use multiple platforms to do distance learning in an ideal way. And so some of the staff members who were kind of struggling getting out the gate because of needing some assistance and guidance, have reported back to us that it's up and running smoothly, and the learning and the professional development has been A+. And the professional development is led by our own staff, administrators, and teachers with an amazing level of expertise. The kind of expertise where we would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars had we went out and consulted. We have some amazing talent here in Albany. On April 27th, 2020, we start gearing up, planning on how to reopen schools in the fall. And so that brings us to where we are today, moving forward. Schools, again, must open safely. Ensuring safety of our kids, staff, and community is a priority. We open schools this fall only and if it's safe to do so. And I wanted to illuminate that because safety is a priority. All consideration prior to opening school will be in compliance with existing orders and guidance from both state and Alameda County public health officials. So that's really, really important. In terms of how we might do this, again, we will be inclusive, collaborative, and transparent. And that means we will be reaching out to our parents, students, and staff, along with our community. This collaborative effort would focus on both academic and operational areas for reopening, ranging from student learning to logistics such as cleaning and sanitizing our schools, meeting requirements for social distancing within the footprint of school buildings, schedules, and calendars. Again, all consideration, just to illuminate the point, will be in compliance with existing orders and guidance from state and Alameda County officials. Here comes the plans. The plans will allow flexibility. And flexibility is very necessary for contingencies, including the possibility that shelter-in-place orders will return if deemed necessary. And that's an important point to highlight by both state and county public officials. And hybrid scenario in which some students remain in distance learning full-time while others participate in classroom instruction. There are three basic scenarios that I wanted to highlight tonight. The first scenario is a hybrid approach. And I put this on your screen as I kind of run through it. It means that there would be smaller classes, students attend part of the day, classrooms are arranged in such a way to keep social distancing, keeping some students at home while others attend, and can look very different from district to district. Instruction may need to be uniformly structured with minimum daily or weekly instruction. Learning from what we've done thus far and some of our challenges is currently with our distance learning, we will have some teaching instruction via Zoom, for example, from early in the morning to in the afternoon to 3:30, and others doing it a few times a week. And so right now we're not uniform. So if we were to subscribe to a hybrid, we would be more uniform with more standards because of what we learned through our current distance learning. The second scenario would be distance learning. And distance learning would be what I just described, would to an extent. It would consist of us staying the course, making some amendments with uniformity, having a minimum standard of instruction, and continually engaging in ongoing professional development. And what we're doing now to prepare that is having our staff participate and develop mastery in various learning platforms so that we can be ready in case we have to extend the school year because we may find it not safe to open schools as scheduled on August 25th, 26th. And then finally would be scenario C, schools fully back in session pre-COVID as we knew it, with some modifications around safety protocols. And that would include, of course, where we may have to consider a pushback of days so that we can provide staff training around new safety protocols because safety is a priority. And so that is contingent, and it depends really. It reminds me of when I used to talk to attorneys over the last few decades, and I would ask them questions, and they would come back with a common response saying, it depends. And now I find myself saying that same thing because it really does depend. And so before the fall, we still have summer. And this summer, we have planned a few summer programs that we will continue to engage in for our students. One, we have our English Language Learners Program that will go on, but it won't be in person. It will be through distance learning. We have our special education program and services that we will continue throughout the summer, contingent upon IEP and some of the students who are in need of extra help. We also have our credit recovery program, typically for the high school, for students who may be off track as a way to get them back on track to graduate on time. And then we have our bridge program, some of which we're going to introduce our new concept where we have a bridge from 5th to 6th and from 8th to 9th grade, meaning that our kids in 5th grade who can benefit from some additional instruction and experiences to get them up to par academically as an attempt to, one, have them prepared, and two, close the achievement gap. We'll be rolling that out this year. And so we're excited about that. We are contemplating whether or not to roll it out with the regular summer program that starts around June 23rd, 4th, 5th, around that area, to pushing it back and starting it 3 or 4 weeks before school starts. And so we're leaning towards having that program start a few weeks before school actually starts to give our kids, that group of kids, a boost so that they can be a bit more ready to start successfully. It's important to address health and safety. I mentioned it a few times. Again, we're going to be looking at protocols for confirmed and non-confirmed case at school or at home. I need to be crystal clear before we open schools. What would be our protocol and our response if someone reported a COVID-19 case versus someone reporting a confirmed COVID case? That needs to be crystal clear, so we will work that out. We would also be providing, for those who need it, personal protective equipment, such as face covering. We would also provide an additional daily cleaning and sanitizing stations, having a couple of daily cleaning, hand washing stations at every site, along with sanitizing stations in every classroom. Where you exit it, you can, or enter it, you can sanitize your hands. And then, as I mentioned, the hand washing stations, and then we have the sanitizing units, as I just mentioned, in all our classrooms. Other factors to consider is significant changes in working conditions. This really refers to the hybrid approach that must be negotiated. That's law here in California. So it's not just something we get to pick, but we get to work on together with our unions and negotiate the effects of that and how we might respond to it. Schools may be, as I mentioned before, to be delayed for a few days to provide training the teachers, staff on how to do schools safely, differently, and adhere to new safety protocols and precautions. So that's important. Next step, as we move forward, starting early next week, we're out recruiting parents, students, and staff to participate in our reopening planning teams. We plan to send out early next week surveys to get a wider selection of input from community and staff. I'm going to go back up to section 5, letter A. We're going to recruit parents and students intentionally from all walks of life. We don't want to just have one perspective and get those parents who are currently our chief influencers only, but get parents who have kids who are doing well, who kids are struggling, so that we have various perspective and input on how best to open schools safely and what kind of programs to roll out to service all kids. So I wanted to highlight that piece. We moving down to area 5, section C. We really want to spend time in our reopening teams dealing with the what versus the how. And the how would be our major responsibility. How would we do this work collectively, addressing the unique needs in our community? Through clarifying our roles and responsibility, goals and objectives and timeline will help a smooth and provide a worthwhile experience for our kids. And then the big issue for us, how would we communicate this to our community? And I find that to be a good question. And we would do that at least through two forums, but bi-weekly communication and updates on the planning and what has been decided. And two, updating it on our website and any other venues that the teams come up with on how best to communicate our progress and our efforts. Some of the questions that were obvious, and there would be additional ones, and we call these our essential questions. What if a parent needs to keep a child at home because of a medical condition that makes the child at risk, i.e. acute asthma? And we do have some options. We may have some additional options, but currently we would have the option for this person to engage in independent study program with a distance learning educational platform so that students are receiving instruction on a regular basis. That's important to note because we will have parents who keep their kids at home for medical reasons and some from some other notable reasons as well. Next question, section B. How will we communicate updates on the plans to reopen schools? I just asked the question and answered it, but I say it again, answer bi-weekly communication and updates posted on our website. And then we have other questions that are going to come from our board president that is a good segue into entertaining the questions or comments that we have at this time regarding the road to reopening our school, a framework for us to work with.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Wells, for that presentation. I do want to open it to the board members for questions, and then there are a number of public comments that I will need to read. So trustees, please ask away.
I can start. Can't tell who else is trying to hit their mute button. So these are some questions, some sort of comments. On the hybrid model, I have heard different ideas about how that could work. I know there are a lot of health experts suggesting that workplaces and possibly schools do not a partial day, but more a 1 week on, 1 week off sort of creation of cohorts to allow for more cleaning and containment of possible outbreaks if they were to happen. So I'd encourage the district to think about those kinds of models, think creatively. As a working parent who has, reached the brink some time ago of trying to manage kids at home, I recognize that no schedule we come up with for a partial day or partial week or partial month is going to be ideal. But I think some balance of what offers the best likelihood that our model will sustain any potential outbreak or change in the health circumstance is something that should be explored. I like that you said we should think about the what. I think I myself have begun thinking very differently about what is it that in-person provides to our kids. And I think it's just as much the social and emotional piece as it is the teaching. So I'd also encourage the district to think creatively about how do we use whatever time and space we have with kids to maybe not just deliver curriculum, but allow them to have discussions or do extracurricular things or just have social interactions and supports. I think this is going to require us to think really creatively about what education is, what the school experience is, and what is of highest priority to provide in person if we can't provide a full day in person. And for both the hybrid and the distance model, assuming we have some distance learning in either situation, I think, again, thinking through what are the goals we have for our kids for the fall. If we are delivering some or all or most of their curriculum over a computer, should we think differently about what it is we expect them to learn and accomplish, given the limitations of that model? And I think I appreciate that it sounds like you're thinking not just about setting some uniformity across what kids are receiving, but I think given the luxury of time, thinking creatively about how do we be realistic about what kind of education we can deliver over a computer, and maybe think differently about what our courses need to be, what expectations we have for students. And then two last things. One I'll say is, as I watch my own kids and myself, although you're not responsible for my social and emotional well-being, I just want to emphasize that to me, that has been the most challenging aspect of this. And I really encourage you to survey families and students about this, because I think it's the most, it's the hardest thing that you lose when you don't have that physical interaction. And we don't have the ability to sort of keep track of how kids are doing in the same way that we do in person. And so I think that should be a top priority. But that said, the thing I'm most concerned about is that the educational gap when kids come back in August, when they come back in January, whenever we resume in-person learning, is going to be really, really distressing. We know that all kids are not able to learn the same way over computers. We know they don't all have access to extra online classes that their parents can purchase. We know that a lot of families are just trying to get through the day doing their job and hoping that their kids aren't, you know, spending too much time on YouTube. So I think that needs to be the starting point for how we approach the fall, is what are we going to, how can we set up the best structure we can to minimize the gap that we're going to see when kids finally return to our sort of pre-COVID reality. And I think that is what keeps me up at night right now. And I know a lot of educational leaders around the state.
Trustee Hinckley, I really appreciate your thoughtful reflection and putting some scenarios and some additional things for us to think about, some of which we thought about and some of which we have not gotten there yet. But in our preliminary research, we have Taiwan and Australia. Australia has a model whereby they have 5 days on and 10 days off as a way to combat the spread of COVID-19. And as you mentioned, that the hybrid approach can take on 100 different kinds of approaches, which is going to be interesting. But it also reminded me how important it would be to have a board member, if we can, on our reopening planning team. I think it would really add so much to the process. So I just put that out to our board members in case any of you guys can make some time to join the teams, and we can talk offline later. So thank you for that.
Well, I have a couple of comments, one question, but before I do all of that, happy to be a part of that. Dr. Wells, please sign me up.
Thank you.
A couple of comments for number 3, talking about the health portion of it. Are we thinking about, as far as testing for staff, or is there something in place for that? And then also, do we have any thoughts around our current visitation policy, or anything in regards to that? And then how we're thinking about going about the community, like getting out all of the communication for all of the protocols in place for families. I assume that there will be a lot of confusion, fear. I mean, we'll see in some of the comments, I'm sure, but just like how we're going about the communication of everything and keeping people keeping everybody informed as to, you know, what we're doing, what the changes are, things like that.
Thank you, Trustee Doss. Some of the things that we're going to grapple with, but I want to get clarification on one of your questions. You said testing. Do you mean COVID testing? Do you mean testing for temperature? I wanted to make sure I could respond to your question and give you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should have been more clear. Testing for like temperature, like when everybody gets there in the morning, just having the where it's, you know, checking everybody's you know, temperature as they come on campus. I'm not sure what the regulations are as far as like having people and the test kits available for COVID-19, but just testing people as far as like, you know, temperature as they come on campus, just making sure that everybody, all the staff is, the temperature is normal and, you know, before they start their day.
We're going to work within the guidelines. That I haven't gotten a response yet, but I will soon, and I can update you in one of our regular updates around our planning teams and things that we have decided to do thus far and the feasibility of doing that. But that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I had two comments if no one else is going. The first one being that I think if we had a sort of hybrid program or going back, which I think was A or C in your plan, right now or before this virus hit, there was a tendency for students to go to school when they were sick just because they couldn't. It was so difficult to miss a day of school and have to catch up on that. Just missing one day would take hours to catch up. So I think it's really important that teachers develop a plan to support students if it's flu season or cold season, in addition to the coronavirus. Just helping students adjust for having missed days and not have there be a pressure for students to come to school if they're not feeling great. And then the other thing was in response to Trustee Hinckley's comments, there is a survey for the high school students that the ASB body has made from leadership at AHS. So we'll be sharing that with the district staff when that is done.
I really appreciate that. Some of the preliminary conversation that we've been having, Audrey, was one you brought up. And we're starting to think about school differently, even for those folks who have to be absent because of medical reasons and other reasons, about more videotapes and archives where people who are at home sick, and if they're able, they can get instruction or play catch up that way. So we're starting to think about school very differently because we have to. But those are wonderful suggestions to consider. Thank you. And President Tutain? I think President Tutain was going to read some questions and comments related to the road to reopening schools and framework.
Yes, I am. Actually, I dropped out of the meeting briefly, just a technical glitch.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're back.
Thank you.
You know, President Tutain, I'm not sure, there was a long pause. I'm not sure all the board members had all the questions answered. So if you could just double check before you move to the comments and other questions from the community.
Sure, board, this is your chance. Are there any other comments or questions about the this initial presentation on the road to reopening? Okay, if not, then we will read the public comment. Again, I'm going to try to read these fast. I think that there are actually 11 public comments. Many of them are pretty short, so I'm going to try to get through all of them. Yeah. So our first is, hello, and thanks to the school board teachers and district employees for your efforts and services during these challenging times. With respect to discussions for the road to reopening schools, I have the following comments. While it's certainly my opinion that children learn best when physically present in a welcoming setting with their teachers and classmates, unfortunately, the current pandemic providing this kind of environment comes after guaranteeing the safety and well-being of the entire community. I believe that making decisions on when to begin transitioning back to an in-person learning environment depends first and foremost on what medical and public health professionals inform us. It must not be based on political machinations or whimsy. The frustrations of adults who mistake prudent public health policy for government overreach or internet-fueled misinformation. In deciding how to reopen schools, I ask that you carefully consider, number one, what approaches are medically safest for all concerned. Number two, what best serves to provide quality, equal education for all students. Number three, taking into consideration differing family circumstances where for some remote learning presents bigger challenges than for others. I suspect that this indicates an incremental approach, first moving to a hybrid model where not all students are present at the same time with reduced hours, then slowly moving to an on-site model with a variety of safety modifications in place. In my opinion, we will all need to be patient and may need to adopt a process that evolves over an entire school year and may be subject to steps back if warranted by the global medical situation. I appreciate your time and consideration. Be well and stay safe. John Myers. Our next is, hi, Superintendent Wells, members of the board. I hope you are all staying healthy during the shelter-in-place time. I'm CCing another parent, AUSD parent, because we've been discussing options for the next school year for our daughters. One of my daughters and myself are both asthma sufferers who need hospitalizations for our conditions, mine occurring most recently in November of 2019. I am still on 3 different inhalers, and my pulmonologist is concerned that I would be at high risk of intubation if infected with the virus that causes COVID-19. I will attach letter if requested. Because of our health conditions, we are considering keeping our children at home this coming school year. My girls would be entering 3rd and 4th, and my friends would be entering 3rd. We love Albany schools and want to stay in it. We've been doing pretty well with distance learning due to the dedication of their awesome teachers. We want to know if it's possible for AUSD to continue to offer distance learning to students or students with high-risk family members in the fall. Alternatively, is independent study a possibility due to these risks and concerns? Would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. Then the next is from a Yalan. Hi, I, as a mom of student, oppose strongly to open school on-site in stage 2. As far as I know, New York has decided to open school in stage 4, which I believe it is most suitable steps right now. I don't think there is a better way to keep students social distancing in school. Since we already have a remote learning way to keep students safe, I don't know why we should abandon it. Anyway, if California State insists opening school on site, I would like the school could provide online learning options for those who volunteer to learn remotely. This will not only provide the method for those who want to learn remotely, but also give space for those who would like to learn on site. Thanks, Yolande. And the next is, many children's mental health and happiness are suffering. I personally know 2 children that now have therapy because of this COVID-19 life. And these are middle-class white children that parents were lucky enough to find and afford therapy. If the district is not planning on returning to school in the fall without a vaccine, will the district explore ideas of an outdoor small group education, like a small group in a field 6 feet apart and masked? This not only will lift children's spirits and give them hope and a sense of school community, it will also allow teachers to do visual wellness check, and it will educate kids on proper safe behavior. P.S. I have completely cut my 3rd grader kid from the online schoolwork. He used to love school. Now he hates it with a passion. Okay, moving on to our next public comment. Number 1, is there any discussion of bringing students back in small cohorts while the rest of students continue distance learning to reduce overcrowding, especially in common areas / cafeterias, etc.? Number 2, if/when students return to school, will temperatures be taken before students enter campuses? Will students with symptoms be sent home to protect school staff, teachers, and community? Number 3, will masks be provided / required? Number 4, please coordinate with WCCUSD as to plan dates for reopening, as many WCCUSD teachers have their own children in AUSD. Thank you. That's from Alexander Campbell Jones. Okay. Next, this one actually is a repeat of one I have already read, so I'll skip that. And then we have RE, the May 12th meeting. From the moment this pandemic was identified, the school district's response has been nothing short of appalling. From Dr. Wells' statement that he wouldn't close schools until someone tested positive, indicating a lack of understanding of communicable diseases bordering on the criminal, to a promise of 2 45-minute online sessions per class per week that never materialized, the school district has done nothing to inspire faith in its competence. Ryan's chemistry teacher gave students work for the semester and then vanished entirely. No classes, no office hours. The kids are supposed to learn chemistry on their own. If that is the case, then what is the point of the teacher or even the school district? Now, against general medical consensus, you are considering reopening the schools. In the previous message, you indicated that it was up to each school district to decide when to reopen. In your May 8th email, you said that state government, not local officials, will decide when to open the schools. The lack of leadership, failure to implement even the most basic of plans, and mixed messaging is totally unacceptable in a school district. I would have accepted canceling the semester. This is the most serious world event in the past 75 years. I would have accepted your promise of 2 45-minute online sessions per teacher per week, giving the kids some structure to their lives. But the random assortment of contradictory messages, missing teachers, and failure to listen to science and medical advice completely undermines my faith in any decision you might make. If you decide to reopen the schools this semester, I assure you that Ryan will not be attending. From Joe, I'll be good. I will not read the PS because I think that's personal information that would be identifiable regarding the student. Okay, and then we have, dear school board members, I'm writing with questions about the staff report, which may be answered during tonight's presentation, but in case they're not, could someone please ask? Thanks. Will there be a standard grade level distance learning curriculum so that all students across the district receive the same amount and quality of distance learning? How will elementary school before care and after care be handled? If students are on staggered schedules, how will that be determined? And will siblings be placed on the same schedule? Is starting the school year early an option? Thanks again. Sincerely, Suzanne Zalev. And not quite the last, here we go. From Eva Maris, Number one, can you address the differences in the schoolwork my children are now assigned? One has an average of 3 to 4 hours a day and the other 6 hours a week. Given that seems possible that the school will close again, even if it reopens, will there be any accountability from the teachers to give a certain amount of work for each day? Number two, what is the plan to address the lost learning in these 3 months? How will the district address this gap? Thank you and wishing you all well. Okay. And then there is a very long email that I will end after about 3 minutes, okay? Dear AUSD School Board and Community, as the parents of 3 AUSD students, as well as being an OBGYN and a pediatrician respectively, we are very grateful for the AUSD leadership and board for keeping our children safe by closing the schools during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. We can certainly appreciate how difficult these times must be for all of you, and we are sure that a great deal of work has been ongoing as you carefully consider the best path forward for the students and teachers during these unprecedented times. We expect that the state will continue to require face masks and physical distancing, and there may be additional guidance forthcoming that will apply to all schools statewide. In the meantime, we'd like to share some school safety ideas for your consideration. In our attempts to educate ourselves about the best practices implemented globally, we have discovered several intriguing ideas that we would like to share with you. Most notably, Taiwan has quite a successful story to tell, since despite its close proximity to mainland China, among Taiwan's population of 23 million people, there have only been 8 deaths from COVID-19. Taiwan's success can be attributed to many factors, but allow us to share how well-considered school policies have prevented viral transmission at schools. Taiwan's successful strategies focused on what happens at the time of entry and exit and during lunch. In Taiwan, as students enter and exit the schools, they walk through a shallow, dilute bleach solution to prevent tracking the virus in and out on their shoes. Number two, as students enter and exit the schools, there's a hand hygiene performed by everyone. Number three, at lunchtime, when masks must be removed, the students eat at their desks after placing a physical barrier on each desk. In addition to learning from the Taiwan experience, we have discovered another strategy we would like to offer for your consideration, the plastic face shield. As many have noticed, cloth or surgical face masks are commonly misused as people repeatedly touch them, thus contaminating their hands. In contrast, face shields provide a clear barrier and are subject to less misuse. They also decrease the risk of self-inoculation from touching eyes/nose/mouth. They could be particularly useful when students are up and about the classroom, passing in the hallways, playing outside, or other times during the day when 6 feet of social distancing is impractical to maintain. Okay, I think that was about 3 minutes. I'll just remind the public that all of these emails will be included in their entirety in the minutes of our meeting. And some of these, especially this last one, has many links to resources about Taiwan and universal masking and other medical articles. Okay.
President Trutain, if you're feeling up to it, I sure would like to hear the rest of the comment from the doctor there.
Whew. Okay, I can, although I am beginning to get kind of dry. Okay. Remember she was talking, actually, this is written by 2 people together, 2 parents, and we're talking about face shields. However, to decrease contamination of surfaces, we would recommend that students and staff just leave them on throughout the day unless eating or drinking, at which time, depending on the design, they could be turned around. Studies already exist showing that face shields worn by medical care providers decrease the risk of transmission of respiratory viruses to them by infected patients. Studies are currently underway to see if face shields provide adequate source control to decrease the risk of an infected person wearing the shield from transmitting a respiratory virus to others. If such data becomes available, we may even be able to use face shields instead of face masks, thus allowing for easier nonverbal communication. Thirdly, we are hoping that you are considering a plan to give families the option of continuing distance learning next year. For high school juniors and seniors, it might be a great option to make online college courses accessible for high school credit. If even 1/4 of parents choose to continue online learning, there will be enormous benefit in terms of increasing the opportunity for physical distancing in redesigning classrooms and schedules. And finally, the issue of enforcement. What policies will be created to support the safety of our teachers and learners? Every time a student or teacher fails to comply with safety policy, they place not primarily themselves, but others at risk. And that's really the end of it. And then it goes into the list of links.
Thank you, President Trutang. For our next meeting, when we do the comment, would it be possible to split it up between a few board members so you don't have to do it all yourself? It seems like a lot.
I would really appreciate that. I think that's a great idea. I think if you and the other board members can help, if we can distribute these comments among us, that would be great.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So in conclusion, I wanted to ask Superintendent Wells a specific question. I did get an email today asking if it would be possible for you to have a kind of a question and answer Zoom open to the community. Would you be willing to try to get something like that together so that parents can send in their questions and you can answer them directly on an online platform? Oh, Dr. Wells, you're muted.
No. Can you, President Trutang, can you repeat that?
Sure. I did get a request today asking if you might be willing to have a question and answer session online with community members. Do you think you could?
I would enthusiastically entertain that and look forward to doing it as soon as possible. Absolutely.
I think that would be great. I think there's a lot of community interest in this, and I think that giving them an opportunity to send in questions and have you answer in like a Zoom format would be very helpful.
Kim, I'm wondering, do we have any information, and if not, could we get some information about how many teachers, or excuse me, how many parents would actually be putting their kids in school? If we like gave different scenarios or just got a sense of how many people would actually be coming to school if we set it up in the fall in various circumstances?
I can't answer that question. I don't know if the district can either.
Well, probably, I mean, not at this point, because I'm assuming we haven't like reached out to people about that, but it might be a good idea to figure out for the future when we're trying to decide what to do. Maybe when we have some other plans figured out, or like plans for different scenarios more clearly cut out.
Are you suggesting like a survey?
Yeah, I mean, we know how much people love surveys, but people aren't doing so much or as much as they used to be. So maybe they'll be more responsive. But yeah, something like that. It might be helpful because, you know, there's so many people who have so many different needs right now. And there might be, I don't know, more people than we'd expect who wouldn't be coming to school. And the person who had written that letter was just suggesting that even if 1/4 of people weren't sending their kids to school, it would help. So it would just be helpful to know. And yes, probably a survey.
I second that. I like that idea. I think people are really, I think that they might not usually do the surveys, but I think this one would be really popular. I mean, for example, we usually only have about 25 viewers of our board meetings, but there's 151 watching right now. So people are interested in this topic, obviously. So I think it might be worth it. Another good idea. I'm not sure why you're leaving.
I would definitely love to stay. That would be wonderful. But maybe, maybe I'll be back in graduate school at UC Berkeley. Who knows? We'll see.
If you could just still watch the meetings and then just email me all your comments.
Got it. Will do.
Can I ask a administrative question, which is, I am assuming that some of this will depend on what the state requires us to do in terms of recording attendance and so forth, and whether we can even offer distance learning for people. Do you have a sense of when the state will be issuing guidance on that kind of thing, like what we're actually required to offer as a minimum educational delivery?
There is no official decision, but a lot of listening from a number of groups ranging from Association of California School Administrators, CSBA, CTA, and other organizations are talking to legislators now about relaxing and easing the attendance requirement, other requirements, because we need the flexibility. So the receptivity is there. So I'm anticipating we would have that continual flexibility around attendance for these kind of reasons. A lot of our kids have medical challenges, anxiety issues, mental health that we haven't even begin to address on the level that we need to reach all our kids who are struggling, let alone the entire family. So we suspect as superintendents throughout California that there would be some easing of the rules as we know them.
Okay, board and community, I think it's fantastic that we have such a large audience tonight. I just want to remind everyone that this is our first step down the road to make a plan for reopening. So what Superintendent Wells presented is gathering a group together, developing the questions that need to be asked and answered, getting all kinds of input. So we will continue to have this topic, the road to reopening, at every one of our board meetings from here on out. And so please stay tuned. We'd appreciate your input and your participation as Dr. Wells forms these planning groups. Dr. Wells, would you like to conclude this item?
Thank you, President Trutain. I appreciate the interest. I also do understand these challenging times. They're most difficult. My staff and I are working very long hours every day, opposed to when schools were in. In other words, we're working harder for our kids and community when schools are out than they were when they're in, because we want to make sure we provide the best opportunities for our youngsters. And so the best way to do that is to make sure we include all folks in our community with opportunities. And so that's why we're going to have small groups and surveys that go out so that we can get the input from everyone. And the way we do it here in Albany, which is unique, will be very different from the way even our neighbors across the street and down the road may do it. But we want to do it only when it's safe and we're able to do it. And we want to work with families who are going through challenges like never before, those that are not traditionally recognized for an alternative education, for example, independent study with instruction, opposed to independent study with just work, is something we're going to do moving forward, along with fine-tuning some other things based on input. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our initial first step and our preliminary thinking. I'm looking forward to the community getting together with us, working together as a team, figuring out how best to do this. We have some answers, but we don't have all the answers. But I think collectively we can deal with all the answers and do something really neat, where this new challenge become a new opportunity for our kids in our community. So thank you for the opportunity, President Trutain.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Now we will move on to our review and action section, 13 on the agenda. Normally we have review and action before we have staff reports, but the agenda committee felt that there was going to be such large interest in the staff reports that they jumped ahead in the agenda. So I just wanted to explain that. Our first item for review and action is 13-1, ratification of the tentative agreement between Albany Teachers Association and Albany Unified School District. Dr. Wells?
Yes, President Trutain. This is an opportunity and maybe in a historical mark where we were able to have a multi-year agreement with our teachers around some very critical areas that was discussed earlier, including making some adjustments in the contract to benefit our students. And so with that, it includes a 1.25 increase for the upcoming year. And so this will complete our 2-year contract. And so staff tonight is asking that the board approve the contract that we were authorized to negotiate. And with that, I turn it over to you, back to you, President Trutain.
Board, do you have any questions regarding this 2-year tentative agreement? Okay. I will emphasize that this is the first time that I've ever heard of a 2-year agreement here in Albany. At least if there was one previously, it was a long way back. This would give us the opportunity to not have negotiations next year because we're done. And I think that would give everyone a chance to focus more on the new normal for learning.
May I speak at this time, President Trutain?
Sure, it's the right time.
Okay. I realize that this agreement is historic in terms of multiple years. 2 years is multiple for Albany, and there are so many important elements that are included in this agreement. Our negotiators did a wonderful job, but I find myself very concerned that we're voting to provide a salary increase for next school year in the face of COVID-19 and so many multiple great uncertainties. For starters, we don't even know what next school year is going to look like, as we've been discussing tonight for our kids. We also don't know the financial fallout, but California is projecting a $54 billion budget deficit. How that impacts on Albany Unified School District remains to be seen. Just a year ago, in my first year on the board, along with Sarah and Brian, we had to cut slightly over $1 million in our spending. Tonight, I fully support the 2% salary increase for this school year. However, I do feel that I would be irresponsible to this community to approve a salary increase for next school year in the face of such uncertainty. I feel that we should defer a decision on next school year's raise until such time as we have concrete and specific numbers from the state as to how much money will be coming into Albany. If I am erring on the side of caution, I would rather do that than face layoffs or loss of electives for the students in the near future. And in the fall, if the picture is not so bleak, then I will be the first to support the salary increase for our teachers for school year 2021. And lastly, the citizens of Albany has entrusted us, the school board, to make the best possible decisions, not only for the academic success of our students, but also to ensure the fiscal stability of our district. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Vice President Duran. Any other trustees want to comment or question on this tentative agreement?
I'll just say, you sort of said this already, Kim, but I am really happy that we have a year where we're not going to be in bargaining. And I think it's clear that everyone recognizes the situation we're walking into next year, and that we can spend our time focusing on how we transform the way we do schooling in an environment that we can't even estimate, even though it's only a few months away. So I know that teachers in a lot of other districts were able to win increases that made it important for us to be able to stay competitive for the best teachers that we know make our district great. And I'm very much looking forward to helping to solve the problems that are coming upon us very rapidly together with our teachers and other staff. But I share Clementina's concern about our fiscal situation, and I'm hopeful that we can figure out how to resolve it while maintaining the excellent quality that we all love Albany for.
Thank you, Trustee Hinckley. Any other comments from the board?
I just wanted to say something really quick. Having a 2-year agreement to me is an exciting thing. And the reason being is that I always want to make sure that we're spending as much time as we can talking about what things we can do in order to improve the education of the students. And that's why we're here. And so now that we have this agreement in place and, both sides have agreed on and teachers are happy about that, then we can get back to what it is that is most important, which is our students. How are we going to keep them healthy? How are we going to keep them safe? How are we going to teach them? Teachers no longer have to worry about the money part of it. We've taken care of that. Now they can jump in, back into helping our students learn, because this is a tough time. And as a lot of parents have said, they talked about their kids are struggling out there. So we have to use all this. We have to use all this time and figure out how we can help those kids, because there's kids out there that are struggling right now. Teachers are the backbone of this thing, and we need them to be 100% focused on the kids and not this. So this will be 2 years where we don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about that. Their families can put plans in place and they know what's coming. And so, I'm happy about this agreement. And maybe it's for selfish reasons. I'm happy about it because now we can just focus on what things can we do in order to make things better for the kids. Because we don't have to, worry about that other stuff. And I'm excited about that because I really like talking about what we can do to make things better for the students of the district. So I am looking forward to this. And when it's time, I'm happy to make the motion.
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick, Kim.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Albany Teachers Association bargaining team and Dr. Wells and his bargaining team as well for reaching an agreement.
Yes, I agree with you, Trustee Clark. I think that with everything else that's been going on, to be able to meet at the table and to come up with an agreement, which I think has it just has there's a lot of good clauses in this contract. It helps us move to the later start time for the high school in the second year out. It also will help us recruit excellent teachers. And so I appreciate the work that they did to come to this agreement and to bring this to us. And with that, I will ask for a motion.
I have one more question before.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I also am really happy to see this, and I'm glad that there was a consensus that our district was able to come to. I am wondering, what is the scenario where we vote yes and then don't end up having like nearly as much money as we're predicting we're going to have for next year? I mean, what are the consequences of voting yes when we're going to be losing a lot of money next year?
I would like staff to take that question.
This is really yet simple, but somewhat complicated and complex, and I'm going to try not to complexify the issue. But when given authority to negotiate a contract, there are rules that we have to adhere to, and when you don't adhere to the rules, you can find yourself in a fair labor hearing with the judge. And so if we were not to go forward, the irony is we may have to pay more in legal fees and in whatever the judge ruled against us on for unfair labor practice, what can be significantly more than the raises that we have. For example, the way it works is that once the board gives the superintendent authority to negotiate, there's no room to take that back, because you have to go into negotiation according to law with full authorization to negotiate what it is you authorize to negotiate. To do anything different once you have an agreement will and can be considered an unfair labor practice, and that's a legal term whereby the other side can take you to the labor board in front of a judge.
I know what unfair labor practice is.
Okay, so
thanks to our wonderful teachers who are
okay, great. So the irony here, for lack of a better phrase, is that the raises that we have on the table, and to take them off, we can be paying significantly multiple times that. And so that becomes a bigger issue than the scenario you just created. And that would be more of my concern, because yet we would say, hey, not go forward with this after we get authorization, because we want to save money. And you could be not really saving money, but spending a tremendous amount more money regarding that kind of action.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more asking, assuming that we do go through with this, and also assuming that we're going to be losing substantial amounts of money next year, what are those consequences just going to look like? Kind of similar to the budget cuts that we've gone through, but maybe a little bit more serious in the coming years? Or, I mean, that's kind of where I'm going.
I'll give this a try. I think that there's too many unknowns right now to be able to answer your question. We had the enrollment update. So our enrollment looks like it's going to be increasing significantly, and that's going to be bringing in revenue. And we don't know, CBO Kim mentioned that there's the possibility of some federal relief funds because of the crisis. And we don't know what the state is going to come up with in terms of the COLA, whether it'll be a zero COLA or a negative COLA, because the state doesn't know yet what kind of income tax revenue they're going to get, and they won't know till the end of July. So altogether, it's just, I mean, unfortunately, we're talking about students' futures, and we're talking about the school district, and we're, all of these very, very important issues. And frankly, it's anybody's guess at this moment where we're going, what the budget picture is going to look like in September. It's not going to look good, that we know, but what actually will have to be done at that point is unclear to me, at least.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Oh yeah, Frank.
Well, President Tutane, first of all, I appreciate Michaela's question, because it's a fair question. But we played with the possible scenarios of the worst case budget scenario and one of the best case scenarios. So we do have the answer to how much that means in terms of lost revenue and what we would have to do for each one of those scenarios. So we played with that, and we gave a brief presentation at the beginning of the meeting with that. The other part is, as President Tutane says, just to kind of piggyback on her, it depends on the scenario, and we won't know until Thursday where we can give an update on what it really means. And so it all depends at this point. And that's the scary part, not knowing, but we do know the possible scenarios.
Okay, and I'm going to pull us back to the agenda. We were, the item at hand is the tentative agreement. And I'm looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the tentative agreement between.
A second?
Roll call, right?
Yeah. Ms. Shin, can you provide a roll call vote for us, please?
Yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't catch who seconded that motion. Was that?
Michaela.
Michaela, thank you. Okay. Student Board Member Mala,
Yes.
Student Board Member Weinstein,
Yes.
and Trustee Hinckley,
Yes.
Trustee Doss,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Vice President Duran,
No.
and President Trutain.
Yes. The motion passes with 4 in favor and Vice President Duran dissenting. Okay. And now we move to our review and action item 13-2, amendment to independent contractor services agreement by and between Albany Unified School District and Lloyd F. McKinney and Associates for the Albany Middle School Annex Theatrical Sound Project.
Good evening, Board President Trutain, distinguished board members, and everyone present this evening. We're bringing this item before the board seeking approval for Amendment 1 to the Albany Middle School Annex Theatrical Sound Project. Now, the reason for the amendment is following the purchase of the theatrical lighting system and sound system, it was discovered that the existing infrastructure in the building, that is the conduits and restways, were not adequate to support the new systems. The cost of this additional work, which is $12,252, is within the construction budget for this project. This amendment was reviewed by the district's program manager, that is DCA, and concurred with the DSA inspector that the proposed compensation is fair and justified for the added work. Any questions?
I had a question, which is, I hope that that at some point we'll be able to have our board meetings when we can't use the city council chambers in the drama room. Director Borrega, do you know if it's going to be possible for our meetings to be videotaped and with the facilities that are being put into the drama room now with this installation?
This new system is a well-designed package offering the latest features for this type of setting. With respect to the audio recording of the meeting, we don't anticipate there being any problem. Once I found out that there was a possibility of the board meetings being held there, there wasn't enough time to get a clear answer to be able to do answer with 100% certainty. I received just this evening an email from the media director from KALB giving us the basic requirements to be able to connect. And as far as the video, there may be some additional components needed, but with respect to the audio portion, we don't anticipate any problem.
Mr. Borrega, I'm so sorry, but It looks to me that you are muted on your computer. I was hearing you a little bit from your iPhone, but I wonder if you could summarize again, and if we could hopefully we can hear you better now.
My Bluetooth is getting ready to die out, and I tried to connect to the audio, so I did my iPhone as a backup. So if I get disconnected, I might have to try to get back in. So what portion did you not hear?
I couldn't hear much of it, frankly.
Oh.
The whole thing.
All right. Yeah. If you could go back over that would be helpful.
With respect to the meeting, recording the meetings?
Right.
Okay.
If we would be able to use this lighting and sound system to record board meetings, if it was
once I found
necessary to
out,
have. Yeah.
Okay. Once I found out that the board meetings, there was possibility of the board meetings being held there, I reached out to be able to find out if the systems were compatible. I just got an email response just a little while ago of the basic requirements needed to be able to record. And as far as the system, as far as the audio recording, this package offers the latest features where the audio recording of the meetings, we do not anticipate any problems. If we were to videotape the meetings, there might be additional components that might be needed, but because there wasn't enough time, I cannot definitely say with 100% certainty what will be needed at this moment.
Okay, well, thank you for looking into that. I think that this contract is really for what's necessary to put in the system that they need to have the drama room work as a drama room. So the question of having the board meetings there is really an additional contingency. Yeah. Any other questions from the board? May I get a motion to approve this amendment to the contract?
I'll move that we approve the amendment to the agreement with Floyd F. McKinney.
I second.
Roll call, please, Ms. Shen.
Mm-hmm. Student Board Member Mala?
Yes.
Student Board Member Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Vice President Duran?
Yes.
President Trutain?
The contract passes unanimously. And we move to our next item, 13-3. This is our last item on review and action. Board of Education self-evaluation instrument. Okay. Clementina, this is our item together. I think the only new information here, really, because we discussed and the board chose this particular instrument at our last meeting. The new information is just that it's coming back on review and action, and Mission discovered talking with CSA that they will administer the survey to each individual trustee anonymously, and they will collate our results and give us a summary back for the fee of $200.
And it's just to be noted, if it's not there, it's an online survey.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, then can we get a motion to accept this instrument and move forward with our self-evaluation?
I'll move that we accept the instrument that we chose last time for this from the CSBA and conduct our self-evaluation. And thanks you guys for putting that together.
A second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Michelle, another roll call, please. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, Student Board Member Mala,
Yes.
Student Board Member Weinstein,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Vice President Duran,
Yes.
President Trutain,
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley,
Yes.
and Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I believe that CSBA is able to get it out to us very quickly. Ms. Shen, I think, told me that it could go out to us in the next few days. But because of the Memorial Day holiday, it wouldn't, and because of the timing for getting out the next agenda, I don't believe that it's possible for us to discuss the results of the self-evaluation at our next meeting at the end of May. It's not all scheduled yet, but I believe that Ms. Shin is going to try to contact us in the next few days to try to schedule a time where the board could get together and work on discussing our own self-evaluation and also work on the superintendent's evaluation, which is something else that must be done before the end of the year. So I thought I would have a timeline for you about getting the survey back in, but actually at this moment, I don't. We're going to have to do some scheduling work by email. Any questions or comments? Okay, then I'll move to Ms. Shen, if you could show the upcoming agenda items slide.
President Trutain, while she's in the process of uploading the slide, I'd like to ask a question regarding future board meetings. I'd like the board to consider tonight, while we all are here, to have a June 16th work session and maybe use 90 minutes of that for board self-evaluation and the other 90 minutes for the superintendent evaluation. I think that's a nice placeholder for that if that works for the board.
Superintendent Wells, I also like that date, and that keeps us at one meeting a week in June. I think that there was some concern about the student board members might only be with us until June 9th, and then might not be able to participate in the board's self-evaluation if we waited until the 16th. But go ahead.
President Trutain, we can do some creative, innovative stuff in terms of getting something out to them to give us feedback prior to their last day. But this, the scheduling does not always work in a nice, neat packet, but we can still accomplish the mission of getting their feedback. And you and I can talk further offline about how we do that.
Is it not possible right now to just extend the term a little bit so we can participate in the meeting? Is that a possibility?
I think that let's try to work on this tomorrow. I think there's many possibilities, and I definitely want to do whatever it takes to make sure that you guys get a chance to participate. Okay, so board, you'll be getting an email Wednesday or Thursday, sort of laying this out in terms of timeline. Now, you can see our upcoming items. One thing that's going to need to be added is the construction update on all of our ongoing projects in the district, because that was not able to do tonight. And before we adjourn, it came to my attention that when I was reading the email matters not on the agenda, I stopped at the end of the first email. I read that first one in completion. I did not realize that there were actually two other very similar emails from other community members about that very same issue, that resolution, and I did not see those. So all of these emails will be conveyed out to the group, and we did ask staff to please give us some information about the resolution, and so that will be coming back to you as well. But I just wanted to apologize for not seeing those additional emails about the ethnic studies resolution that came to us. And I want to reassure those people that their emails will be read and considered and will be a part of the minutes of the meeting. And I didn't hear of any other directions to staff or any other agenda items that in this meeting tonight. So,
I have one, Kim, I'd like to bring up, please.
oh, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to request that we agendize a discussion about ranked choice voting at large.
Let me, because the city council will have had their meeting before our next meeting. So what is your time frame for this, Trustee Clark?
I know we're really, really busy now. As soon as we can get it on, I would like to have the board discuss it, because the two previous resolutions was from the old board.
We'll discuss ranked choice voting. Okay, that's noted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And with that, thank you, board. We are adjourned.